What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, bringing you another deck from the legendary modern decks. This time it is the turn of X-Sabers. Now this is pure X-Sabers, and quite like when I did with the Sky Strikers, I've got the main deck, so these are all the cards that came with inside the X-Saber legendary modern deck. Then I've got the cards that came in the other legendary modern deck, so the Strikers and the Mitsurugis, and then I've got the cards over here that are cheap budget upgrades that can make the deck perform a little bit better in the modern standard. Then I've also got the side deck and the extra deck, and on top of that, I'm also going to bring you a very basic one-card combo for the deck to show you exactly what it can do. So, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Now, as a bit of a disclaimer, in regards to the X-Saber, it's probably like the only legendary modern deck that you kind of need two of the X-Saber decks themselves. So whether you get X-Sabers and then buy the individual cards that I'll take you through on their own, or whether you buy two single X-Saber decks from the legendary modern decks online, that is another option for you. So I'm going to take you through the cards that are included inside the X-Saber deck themselves, starting off with the brand new normal summon of the X-Saber Polina. Now, apologies, I was waiting for my second copy of the deck to turn up, and unfortunately it hasn't turned up yet, but I thought if I delayed the profile any longer, we'll start bleeding into Blazing Dominion content. So this one would be, you get two copies, which is kind of annoying because you get one ultra, you get one common. I'm not sure if this and Bruno actually come as a secret rare upgrade or not. I know the X-Saber Gothams does. So if you get really lucky, you could get two X-Saber Gothams. But it would have been nice if you got one ultra X-Saber Gothams and then one common. And then it would have been nice if you got one ultra Polina and then two commons in one deck to kind of build on from there. But regardless. So the Polina is now the best normal summon for the X-Sabers because on normal or special, you send it to the grave and then special on two X-Saber monsters from the deck, except itself, but destroy them during the end phase. If this guy is sent to the grave as synchro material for an X-Saber monster, you can apply one of these effects. That monster can make a second attack during each battle phase, or that monster can attack directly. You can only use each effect once per turn. Now, this kind of acts like a rescue cat. I can never tell in regards to card effects like this if it's a benefit that it sends as cost or not. Because obviously if it sends as cost, it dodges stuff like Veilers and Imperms, but they can still preemptively hit them with Veilers and Imperms unless it's a quick effect, which would have been really amazing to do. The other downside is if it sends as cost, if they were to activate like a Dominus Impulse or if they were to activate an Ash Blossom, you've got nothing on the field. Which again wouldn't be so bad if you had cards that needed you to have no cards on the field, so it wouldn't feel like such a neg. But I suppose cards that have effects like that to give you access to two monsters might as well have a glaring weakness or a glaring downside. The other card we've got is free X-Saber Bruno. So this is the other brand new card for the deck. Again, exact same applies. But this one is a Psychic Tune-Up level 3. So it can actually be summoned out with Emergency Teleport, which I'll talk about later on when we get to that, because that's another card that I was like, really? So once per turn during your opponent's main phase or battle phase, you get to quick effect immediately after the effect resolve synchro summon using only earth monsters you control, including this card. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn, and if this card is in the hand, you get to banish one other earth monster from the hand, face-up field, or graveyard to special summon it. And if it is normal or special, you get to add a Saber spell or trap from the deck to a deck or graveyard to the hand. Now, what makes this card so good is it has so much utility. It can special summon itself, it can be summoned from Emergency Teleport, it can also get you access to one of your Saber spells and traps, which in X-Sabers, their Saber spells and traps are pretty insane. And then the fact that it lets you synchro summon not directly going into earth monsters, but letting you use earth monsters just opens up the door so much for you. If it said only go into earth XZs, earth synchros, yes, of course, your X-Sabers are all earths anyway, so it doesn't make that big of a difference, but it would then limit you to some of the targets you could go for. Whereas the fact that it just lets you use earth monsters, which is what you're going to be doing anyway, is actually quite cool. And then we've got some of the classic X-Sabers cards. So we've got the X-Saber Fault Troll. So you want to max this one out. So this one can become a special summon if you control two or more X-Saber monsters. And then you target level 4 or lower X-Saber in your graveyard and special summon it. So like this card's insane. It can't be normal summon to set, and it must be special summon from the hand. But it's not a hard once per turn or anything like that. It's a soft once per turn. And then just being able to bring back an X-Saber monster is pretty nuts. So this card, amazing. And then we've got a bunch of one-offs. So now we're on double X, a single X-Saber Borgart Knight. So it can't be used as synchro material except for the synchro of an X-Saber, but when this card is specifically normal summoned, you special on a level 4 or lower X-Saber from the hand. Now again, the reason that this is less effective is for the pure fact that your Polina is the one you're going to want to go to as your main normal summon. This one, of course, you could play less Polina and play free Bogart, but then you need to see the Polina, so it's kind of like counterproductive. And then if you normal summon this one down and this one gets stopped, then your Polina never hits the field. So again, pros and cons on all of it. One X-Saber full Meta Knight, full Helms Knight, sorry. Once while face up on the field, this is your level 3 tuner. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, target the attack monster and negate the attack. If this card is destroyed by an opponent's defense position monster by destroys an opponent's defense position monster by battle, target level 4 or lower X-Saber in your grave and special summon it. So it's rare it's going to destroy one of your opponent's defense position monsters because at 1300, but more times than not, it's a warrior with a level 3 tuner. One X-Saber Dark Soul. So once per turn during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there from the field to the grave, you get to add an X-Saber monster from the deck to the hand. So searchability for the end phase, a little bit slower now in modern game, which is where you don't need to max out on it. One X-Saber Garsum. So gains 200 attack for each X-Saber monster you control. If it's on the field, is destroyed by card effect and sent to the grave, you add an X-Saber monster from the deck to the hand. Now, one thing to mention about the X-Sabers is that they're great in... They can be really good in Genesis. Like, you can build them modernly in Genesis as well and work within the point limit. But obviously, apart from the new cards, X-Sabers is kind of a cool Time Wizard Edison style deck, which is quite an interesting one as well. So it's kind of caught in this loophole. Because when you look at the legendary modern decks, you've got Sky Strikers, which are arguably a modern competitive deck. You've then got Mitsurugi, which is definitely a modern competitive deck. And then you look at X-Saber and you're like, is that a modern deck? Or is that more of like an Edison throwback? But this is probably the one deck between Strikers, because obviously Strikers can't be used in Genesis. Mitsurugi rarely can be used in Genesis just because of how high the points total are. So this is like your Genesis, your Edison, and could be used as your modern deck. So arguably, of all the 3 decks, this is probably the best for variety. But where it's the best for variety, it's the least for modern competitive nature. And then we've got the one X-Saber Ragguria. So when this card is normal or special, you get target an X-Saber in your grave and add it to the hand. Now remember, a lot of this is old text of when effects, so they haven't been modernized to be like ifs, so they can miss timing in certain scenarios, so keep that in mind. And then one X-Saber partial. So can't be destroyed by battle, and then once per turn, during your opponent's standby phase, take 1000 damage. This card must be face-up defense position to activate and to resolve this effect. This is just one of those classic cards. It is your level 2 tuner, so that's how you can work your way into Materia Beast and Barkion. But this is your classic card back in the day, and especially in Edison, where your opponent can't destroy it by battle, makes it really awkward and annoying to deal with. Then we've got 3 Fire Formation Tenki. Yes, of course, you can search out any of your other Beast Warriors, being your Bogart, but you can also just go for your Polina, so you've got like 6 access to that one. One Emergency Teleport. Now, disclaimer, I am playing 2 more. Remember, these are the cards that are just inside the X-Saber deck themselves. Why Emergency Teleport was only at 1, I'm hoping it's not something for the future. I wouldn't even, like, I can't even say, well, maybe they put these decks together when the old list, because Emergency Teleport's been back at 3 for years now. But this card should have 100% been at 3 in the deck. It is relatively cheap and easy to pick up the last 2. Like, that's not a big issue. But yeah, you'd play 3 Emergency Teleport. I'm going to come to those in a minute because they are in the cheap budget upgrade cards that you're going to want to pick up. So just show them there. So don't worry if you're seeing this list is like, he's only playing 1 Emergency Teleport. I'm not. I'm just showing you the cards that are inside the legendary modern day X-Sabers themselves. 1 Gotham's Second Call. So if you control an X-Saber Synchro, you get to target 2 X-Saber monsters in the grave, special on both targets, ignoring their summoning conditions. You change their attack to 0 and destroy them during the end phase of the turn. You can only activate 1 Second Call per turn. You can't conduct the battle phase of the turn you activate this effect, which is fine. It's basically like a double Monster Reborn to help you Synchro climb. 1 Saber Slash is technically your searchable Raigeki, but you destroy face-up cards on the field equal to the number of attack position X-Sabers you control. So I say like a Raigeki. It's probably like your own Lightning Storm, maybe. But it does both, which is pretty cool. And then 1 of the brand new Saber combination. This is like the only one that you can comfortably play at 1, but if you've got 2, you can play 2. So while 10 or more X-Saber monsters are in the field, graveyard, and or banishment, X-Saber monsters you control gain attack equal to their original defense. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If you special on an X-Saber monster or monsters from the extra deck, except during damage step, special on an X-Saber monster from the hand or deck. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you get to special on an X-Saber monster from the hand. So you constantly keep flooding the deck with X-Sabers, which is quite funny. And then that's where your Bruno is going to come in to help you get different synchro interactions. Then we've got the 1 Saber Hole. So when a monster would be summoned, while you control an X-Saber monster, negate the summon if you do destroy it. So searchable counter trap. And then the final two cards is one Fuelos and one Perulia. Don't worry, we are going to be playing two Perulia and two Fuelos. But again, these are the cards that came just in a single copy of the X-Sabers, Barb, Polina, and Bruno at free. So the cards that came in the other decks. So we've got 3 Infinite Impermanence, which came out in the Mitsurugi deck. We've got 3 Forbidden Droplet, also came in the Mitsurugi deck. And then 3 Ash Blossom, which came in the Mitsurugi deck as well. So technically, you shouldn't need to buy the Striker one, but what I'm trying to say is if you spend £30 on one Legendary Modern decks, you're going to have this section covered, and then you can buy the rest. So this is why this deck can very easily be like a $50 or less deck. The cards are cheap upgrades. Now, you can play Dominus Purge if you want to. I've not put Dominus Purge in this deck because it's probably like the most expensive single card, but you should be able to pick it up relatively cheaply. The card that I decided to go to instead was Dominus Spiral. Now, if you could play Dominus Purge and you've got access to them, play Dominus Purge, Spiral, and Imperm is pretty nuts. So Dominus Spiral, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this one, is during a turn in which your opponent has activated a monster effect in the hand or graveyard. You get to activate this card from the hand. Target a monster your opponent controls and you return it to the hand or extra deck. Then if you have no trap cards in your graveyard, your opponent can special summon a monster from their grave. If you activate this card from the hand, you cannot activate the effects of light and dark monsters for the rest of the duel, which is fine because you're only really going to be focusing on Earths. So you would play the second Perulia and the second Fuelos. So like I've already said, if you were to buy 2 X-Saber decks, so let's say you bought a Legendary Modern deck, so you get all of the staples that you need from the Mitsurugis and some from the Strikers, and then you bought a separate single version of the X-Saber deck, which I think I saw online were like £7 was the cheapest I saw someone selling them. I got a friend that gave me their ones. I'm just waiting for them to arrive, and he literally just said, pay for postage, and you can have them because I don't want the bulk lying around. But he took out the chummies, and I was like, that's fine, I just want the X-Saber cards. And then you'd obviously get 2 more emergency teleports. Like, this is your extender, it's not a hard once per turn, it gets you access to Bruno very easily. And ironically, if you were to add Ghost Ogre, which I think is going to be a really good card for next format, you can actually emergency teleport out your Ghost Ogre, and either use it as a tuner, or you can just use it on the field as a disruption. So that's it for the entire main deck, once you include all the little budget upgrades. Those upgrades are nothing wild. Like Spiral, I think was something like £5 to £7 a copy. Purges are like £10 a copy if you wanted to get into them. So you can branch this deck above the $60 threshold if you really want to. But honestly, I don't think you need to. For the extra deck, another bit that's a slight annoyance, which I've already mentioned, is you'll play 2 X-Saber Gothams. Why this card only came as 1 copy and then roll the dice and get in the promo, I'll never know, but so this one is, if it is synchro summoned, you add an add a Saber or Gotham spell or trap from the deck to the hand. You get to add your Gotham's Call, which is when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you get to discard a random card from their hand. When your X-Saber monster is targeted for an attack while this card is in the graveyard, you special summon this card, then change the attack target to this card. You can only use the effect once per turn, so play 2 of that. Then we've got the one Hulu. When this card is synchro summoned, target up to 3 spells and traps on the field and destroy them, so it's just your back row hate. One of the Commander Soza Swordmaster. So it's always treated as an X-Saber card. Gains 200 attack for each banished monster. When this card destroys a monster by battle, you get to draw 1 card. And then once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you get to tribute an X-Saber monster, destroy 1 card your opponent controls. If this card would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you banish the Saber card from the grave instead. Now, the best thing about this one is if you branch this off with combination, is it combination? The one that lets this have multiple attacks, you get to attack twice, you'll draw twice, which is cool. 1 X-Saber Umbriel. Yorbellum. Umbriel. Where, like, Yorbellum. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, while you have 4 or more cards in the hand, place a random card from their hand on the top of the deck. So, yes, X-Sabers was a hand rip style deck, and you'll see that when we talk about the next guy, X-Saber Gothams. So, tribute an X-Saber monster, discard a random card from your opponent's hand, not hard once per turn, so as many X-Sabers you've got, you tribute and hand rip. So, one of the original hand ripper decks. Carrying on with the other cards, so all of these cards are in the X-Saber deck, by the way. The one Barkion, so the trap card is activated, quick effect, banish 2 cards from the graveyard and negate the activation. If you do, destroy that card. This can be done as many times as this card stays face up on the field. Naturia Beast, so when a spell card is activated, you get to send the top 2 cards of your deck to the grave, negate the activation. If you do, destroy it. Black Rose Dragon, so this is actually quite useful to be summoned during your opponent's turn off of the back of Bruno, and you'll see that during the combo. Crocosaur is your level 9, so discard cards to destroy cards and draw cards and you name cards. I've got the one Shenying. This can just make it very awkward for your opponent to out. The attack stat reductions and increases, plus the banish to then banish and banish, is really useful. 1 Moonlight in case you don't want to destroy cards, you just want to bounce cards. And then 2 cards that you would be able to pick up, which should be relatively cheap and easy to do so. 1 FA Dawn Dragster. So this has had I think this is it's still a little bit expensive, but I'm pretty sure it's like came as a common. I could be wrong. Let me just double check this one. I swear it had a recent reprint, but I could be so wrong on that one. I swear it's in like OTS something. Mega Pack 2025 as an ultra rare. It's got a super rare as in the gold sarcophagus megatins, and then the original rare as a flame of destruction. So, but the other is, again, you can synchro summon this during your opponent's turn and control from there. And another one you can synchro summon during your opponent's turn is the Silvera Wolf of the Tamers. I actually quite like this because if you synchro summon it, you change all your opponent's monsters to face down defensition. And again, it's just one of these ones that because you can summon it during your opponent's turn, it acts as a very big interaction that can cause them a lot of issues. So that's it for the entire main deck and the extra deck. And like I said, the only 2 cards that you'll need to buy outside of this, apart from being the second X-Saber Gothams, is these 2 cards right here. Moving on to the side deck. So for the side deck, we've got 2 Nibiru. So this came in the Sky Striker deck, alongside 2 Triple Tactics Thrust, 2 Lightning Storm, which is really weird because they both came in the Striker deck as well, and the Raigeki, and then also the Harpy's Feather Duster. So the side deck is why you want the Striker deck. And then the cards that didn't come in any of the decks you might need to upgrade is you can go for 3 Ghost Bow if you want to, but again, I just think this is going to be a really important card for the upcoming format. It's still a really important card right now in this format. 2 Drow and Lockbird, and then 3 Iron Thunder. You don't have to play Iron Thunder, but the idea is that the Iron Thunder just gives you an additional card to protect your go first field. You can consider evenly matched. I think evenly matched could also be quite a good card for the upcoming format, but considering this card was in Rarity Collection 5, it's actually really easy to pick up. So you've got loads of different options. You can play Cross-Eyed Designator, you can play Call by the Grave. Nibiru can be a bit of an issue for this deck, which is why Call by the Grave could be a good option. I feel that the next biggest upgrade you would make for this deck would be the Dominus Purge. I just think adding Dominus Purge to this deck is pretty insane because of how good that card is. And when you're already playing Spiral and Imperm, you're starting to get your double effects by having trap cards in the graveyard very easily before you start activating them. So that's pretty much it for the entire main deck, extra deck, and side deck. Now to show you that very, very basic 1-card combo, so I'll be back in a second. The 1-card combo is all coming off the back of Polina. So on normal, or special summon, but on this scenario on normal summon, what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to trigger the Polina's effect. This is then going to allow us to summon 2 X-Sabers from the deck, one being Bruno, and the other one is going to be X-Saber Garsams. Now you can very easily bring out the Bogart Knight. It doesn't make much of a difference. The only reason you'd go for the Bogart Knight instead of the Garsams is so that during your opponent's turn, if you plan to synchro into a level 7, you need to be able to summon the Garsams from the deck and not the Bogart, because this locks you into X-Sabers, or can only be used as synchro summoning for an X-Saber, but that's one thing to remember. We're going to trigger Bruno's effect to grab us the Saber combination, and we're going to activate the Saber combination before we synchro summon. We're then going to synchro summon into a 7, being the newer X-Saber Gothams. In doing so, you're going to build a chain, and it's quite important that the X-Saber Gothams is the first to resolve, because we are going to be dealing with when effects, so remember that. So we're going to go, chaining 1 will be Saber combination, chaining 2 will be the X-Saber Gothams. In doing so, the X-Saber Gothams will grab you your Gotham's second call, and then as we resolve the Saber combination, this will summon out the Ragura. Ragura will then, specifically because it's a when, a normal, or special, you get target X-Saber monster in your graveyard and add it back to the hand. So you're going to add back your Bruno, as this is going to be your extender later on, which is really important. Now we can activate our Gotham's second call to bring back our Polina and our Garsam. So now what you've got on field is you've got the ability to make a Naturia Beast, which is exactly what we're going to do here. Synchroing these 2 together for Naturia Beast, so we've got answers to our opponent's spells. We can now special summon down the Bruno by being able to banish from the graveyard a Polina or the Ragura. It's entirely up to you which one you get rid of. And then what you want to do is you're going to pass your turn. Now remember, the Garsam will kind of self-implode off of the back of the Gothams because it needs to be destroyed during the end phase. But just what we have here during our opponent's turn is you've got the ability to activate Bruno's effect, which will then allow us to synchro with the X-Saber Gothams and itself to get ourselves into the Commander Soza. In doing so, we'll now be able to trigger off the back of the Saber combination. So it allows us to special summon an X-Saber monster from the hand or deck, and then when your opponent declares an attack, you can special summon an X-Saber monster from the hand, but we're not going to be doing that right now. The idea is what you want to do is you want to get access to your second Polina, And in doing so, you can now trigger the on-summon effect of the Polina to then get rid of it, sending it to the graveyard, and summon out your Bruno, and then summon out your X-Saber Dark Souls. Now, it's entirely up to you if you go this route of play. Now, to go this route of play, the reason I'm doing that is that the synchro I want to make is using Bruno during my opponent's turn with the X-Saber Dark Souls and work my way into the Silvera. So that's something you want to be able to keep in mind as well, because remember with Bruno is that once per turn during your opponent's main phase or battle phase, you get a quick effect to synchro summon using this card as the effect, but then you can only use the following effects once per turn. So it doesn't include its own synchro summon effect. So you can do that synchro summon effect as many times as you have copies of Bruno, but it's the secondary effect that changes a little bit. And the idea is that I wanted to go into the Silvera to then Book a Moon all my opponent's monsters. So like maybe they put a monster on the field that threatens the Naturia Beast, the Silvera will be able to deal with that. In a different world, if you wanted to summon out the Bogart previously, so during the opening combo, that will then open up the door for your FA Dawn Dragster. It could also open up the door for the Black Rose Dragon, and it can also open up the door to the Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. So it gives you a couple of different options depending on what you want to work towards. Another 6 you could go for if you do bring out, instead of going for the Silvera, is the Hunley, and in doing so this will allow you to destroy your opponent's spells and traps. So you've got a couple of different options depending on what you want access to. I've gone with the Silvera. I just think that book effect is going to be quite important. And then you've got the Naturia Beast, and then of course you do have the Commander Souza. So it gains 200 attack, and then when this card destroys a monster by battle, you get to draw a card. And then once per turn where your opponent activates a card or effect, you get to tribute an X-Saber monster, destroy a card your opponent controls. So technically you can tribute itself, or if you want to play it even more kind of protective, you can actually just leave the Dark Souls on the field, and you can use your Souza to destroy your Dark Souls. And then during the end phase, this will then be able to add an X-Saber monster from the deck to the hand. So you've got that option there as well. It's entirely up to you on which way you'd want to go. You do also open up the option that you could synchro these off as well. You've got a couple of different options, so that's something to keep in mind. And that's it for the entire profile, combo, everything in between. Now, I'm not saying this deck is amazing, because as you would have seen, Polina is actually quite an important core centerpiece of the entire deck. So if your opponent has the ability to constantly ash it or stop it, you're going to be in a bit of trouble. And that's something that could be a little bit awkward for you, but that's just something to keep in mind as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I am always happy to answer them where at all possible. Apologies that I couldn't get the full deck ready for you. I don't like using blank cards, but unfortunately, like I mentioned at the start, I felt that if I delayed this profile any longer, I probably wouldn't have been able to kind of get it out in a timely manner for you all to see and understand exactly what this deck wants to try and achieve. Anyway, for now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.